All right, guys, welcome to the December 2025 meeting of the PRC, last meeting of this year. Um, as I indicated before we started recording, there are quite a few regrets, so I'll just tell you who they are. Howard, Dick, Brendan, Lynn, and Rob. We also have a new member, Jessica DeVries, and she couldn't make it today, but she'll be here on January, so we'll welcome her when she joins us. So, having said that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Peter, secondary, Irving, all in favor? Great, thanks, guys. Okay, news and announcements. Basically, the one piece of news that I've included in this agenda that took place since our last meeting is the indication from the Ontario government that they plan to require cash bail as part of a new justice bill. And I've given everybody a link to the CBC article on that behalf. And I think it's worthy of some discussion. I have a lot of problems with that particular proposition. The first most being I don't think it's constitutional. And I agree with, and the Civil Liberties Association agrees with that position. It's a condition of bail is a criminal code matter. It's in the 510 to 515 sections of the criminal code. And that's where conditions on bail are located. So I have a hard time seeing how they can, insert into the bail process the requirement for cash bail whenever basically a surety is asked to participate. But I'm open to discussion. But what do you guys think?
Right off the bat, I think it will very much disenfranchise a number of people who can't afford cash bail, period.
Absolutely.
That would be one of the biggest stumbling blocks for them. And obviously, that's going to fall on either Indigenous persons or persons of color for the most part. Anyways, I'm not saying that everybody would be in that same position, but I think that it will definitely work at further disenfranchising them.
Oh, absolutely. It'll disproportionately affect people in the system who are overrepresented in any event, and
Mhm.
requiring people to post funds is an incredibly onerous thing for almost anybody involved in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the only other comment that I had on that was that it seems that our premiers in our provinces coming across the country, for the most part, although Alberta, Ontario for sure, are really sticking their nose into things that really they are in some respects beyond their purview. The province does have the administration of justice uh, stick to carry, yes, but at the same time, it just seems that it's being fully politicized as opposed to actually looking at just the administration of justice.
Agree.
Miles, when they say cash, they mean no bond, no surety, no property, no nothing else.
Well, I think that the deal is that there will still be sureties, but those sureties are the ones who are going to have to post cash as part of that agreement to warrant the return of the
Okay.
accused before the court.
You got to lay down money one way or
Yeah,
the
yeah, and the idea, of course, is that if the bail is breached and the person doesn't show up,
other.
then cash, and so it obviates the necessity of the government chasing somebody down to actually get the money that they agreed to pay in the event of default.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing too that they're doing, and they didn't say much about it, but I caught it because I wrote about this a long time ago. They're bolstering what are called bail compliance units, and they've been around for about 15 years now. And what they are, at least in the TPS, Toronto Police Service, is that cops, know that people who are on bail, a number of them have curfews, and so what they'll do is they'll go to somebody's house without any grounds to believe that they're there or not there, and and knock on the door at 9 o'clock if the curfew's at 9 o'clock, right? And then of course if the people are there, that's fine. If they're not there, they wait for them to show up and they arrest them. And they call it a bail compliance unit. That's totally illegal to do that, right? I mean, unless, especially, and Peter, you would know this as well as I do. If a cop is gonna go to somebody's home, right? They've got to have a warrant. Almost
Yeah.
always have to have a warrant to go to somebody's home, unless they see somebody committing a crime and going through the front door, and
Right.
they're following them in. So, so the fact that they're going to, put more money into the bail compliance units when they do this kind of thing, is extraordinary to me. You just can't, unless you have grounds to believe, you just can't show up at people's homes with the prospect of maybe catching them not complying with their bail conditions. So that's part of this movement by the Ontario government as well. So they're touching all their bases. So anyway, I think this is a problem. I
Mm,
don't. I mean, I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, I don't know if whether, we've never done this before. I don't think we've ever appeared before a committee for the Ontario government passing a piece of legislation. Irving, you would know that I would know.
Not in my recall, at least. So I'm going back 22 years.
Yeah.
I would slightly disagree with you, Miles. Definitely can't go into a dwelling house without a warrant unless it's hot pursuit or exigent circumstance. But part of that those units you're talking about, sort of similar to our serious habitual offender unit here in Calgary and in different parts of Alberta, where it is the monitoring of people that have a long history of breaking all of their conditions, and is to ensure the monitoring so that if we were letting them out on bail, that they are in fact complying. Also within the youth justice system, and I remember in Winnipeg, this is a number of years ago, I did a study out there, a longitudinal 3-year study on car theft offenders, and the intensive supervision that probation was providing for them actually helped a lot of them to make sure that they could comply. That was like they actually even gave them cell phones to be able to phone in, where are you right now? You know what time it is, etc. A lot of these kids back then, 30, I think it was 38% of the total sample were FASD. And had real difficulties in living up to their conditions. They basically just forgot, didn't know how to do it. And so on one side, I can see how that can be used. And I think from my standpoint, I think it is a fair thing to do, depending upon how it's being done. However, I think there's, if it's a smoke and mirrors thing, just to be able to circumvent the law and grab somebody, that's one thing. If there's actual a purpose to ensure compliance, and not have the person sitting in detention while awaiting trial,
Yeah.
then yeah, I think it has to be nuanced a little bit more. But if it's just strictly there, to grab and get the extra tick box on, we just pulled in 10 more people on bail, and just reinforces that whole Polyev narrative type of thing. I would agree with you on that part, but that was just my little
No,
nuance.
totally correct. I mean, it's from my point of view, it's where it takes place and how it takes place.
Yeah,
But otherwise, compliance is fine if somebody, is habitually, someone who breaches conditions, and they're, if you find somebody in a bar at 9:30 at night and their curfew was 9 o'clock, then
yeah,
that's game over.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
get that. So
yeah. I
yeah,
hear you.
it's a matter of, I guess it's a matter of degree to some
Yeah.
degree. So I'm just thinking. I mean, I don't even know, and I presume, and this is my ignorance showing through because I don't pay a lot of attention to provincial politics, at least from a criminal point of view. I presume that they do introduce bills the same way that the federal government does. And they have readings. It's not a bicameral system, so it's just going to be just through the legislature. And they go and they go to second reading and perhaps have committee. I
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the case. If it is, I think it's
Yeah.
something that we may want to make our presence known.
It's interesting. I simply don't know if they have committee hearings that are open for experts and such. I don't know. But you know what you're describing, if it seems to me, I'm thinking of the federal parole system. An individual is released under on parole under certain conditions, and one of those conditions is, and one of the expectations rather that a parole officer will meet with that individual in a manner or according to a frequency schedule that's established by the board. So let's say twice a month or 4 times a month, and the expectation, I don't think it's changed since I've retired, is that half of those meetings shall take place at the residence of the individual or his place of work or somewhere in the community. So it would not be considered inappropriate for them to ring his bell and say, "How are you, John?" and et cetera, et cetera. So, I see that kind of a parallel. If the condition of release of somebody on bail is the same, why can't they check up on the guy? Otherwise, how do you monitor whether or not he is home at curfew hour and so forth? I'm just giving kind of an overview based on my experience in the federal side.
So in Ontario, under that situation, you would have an Ontario probation officer supervising as opposed to the police. They don't do, at least when I worked in Ontario Corrections, they didn't do home visits anymore, out of safety and security and kind of discussions with unions, right? So you didn't have probation officers going to people's homes anymore. And so kind of the default turned to the police. I think I fully support the opportunity to kind of put the CCGA in front of committees or organizations where we could have our positions put forth and give us a bit more profile as an organization. I also think, on this bail thing, one of the big components and the things that a lot of people are talking about is also what is this going to do to the correctional system, right? In Ontario, especially, we have a significant issue with pretrial and remand folks. And so adding more people under a cash bail rule is not going to be helpful, especially when we're seeing severe cases being thrown out because of the conditions in Ontario facilities, right? So this whole political rhetoric about putting violent criminals behind bars, and then in fact, actually the people who are committing a lot of these heinous and violent crimes are getting out because of the conditions in our facilities, but those who don't have proper representation are the ones who are getting snarled in the system, I think is a big conversation that needs to happen more in the media and in the public space that I think the CCJ can really help with.
Excellent. I agree. Yeah, and we'll get to this when we talk about Bill C-14, I guess it is, about the appearing before the Justice Committee, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I guess what I'll do over the course of the next few weeks is I'll just check into what the Ontario system is with respect to committee work and presentations or witnessing for it. It'll be a learning curve for me, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah, and if there's an opportunity and if we think that we have something valuable to say, then a trip to Toronto is probably a pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah, and I'll offer to give testimony if there is any kind of opening for that.
Yes, absolutely.
And Miles, I'll take a look at the Alberta system because here, it's terrible because of the majority government, which I think would be very similar to Ontario with a majority government. The government, it goes through the sham, literally, of introducing, first reading automatic, second reading, everyone gets a yik yak in the legislature, and then third reading passed, move on. And so I'll find out about the committees here, but that's basically the way it's happening here, and that's why we're getting the stuff that we're getting right now, and it's almost not democratic in a democracy.
Good, right? That's great, Peter. Thank you. Yeah, so we'll take a look at it and report back and see if there's a role for us to play, and that'd be a good thing, I think. All right, guys. Any other news or announcements anyone wants to bring to the attention of the committee?
I've got something, but I'll wait till after Sarah does her thing because she may already touch on it. It's to do with Edmonton Police and cameras and use of facial recognition technology.
Okay, good enough. Anything else?
Miles, the OCI's report came out, and I can't remember if we talked about that. I think it came out between our meetings now, from the Correctional Investigator of Canada, and so I don't think that's something that we flagged. And my question is whether or not we want to put out a statement or something related to that report.
Okay. Did you want to bring us up to speed?
What to bring you up to speed about? OCI's annual report came out. With it at his press conference, Ivan Zinger announced he is resigning from his position early, and flat out talked about, part of the reason for that being that is a lot of writing recommendations year after year, and the organization not fulfilling those recommendations because kind of, they're not mandated or required to fulfill those recommendations. And so, openly and candidly spoke about the fact that that's part of the decision to leave his position early. The report really focused on mental health and mental health within federal corrections and kind of what's happening in the RTCs. I think that's kind of off the top of my head, those are the big things that came out that are coming to mind for me. But I know a lot of other organizations came out and either made a statement about like supporting the report or supporting the recommendations, and curious to know whether or not that's something that, you know, through the PRC and through the CCJ more broadly we want to do as an organization.
Again, I think if we have something to say, I think that's a good thing to do to get it out into the public and to get it known that we're paying attention to these kind of things. But I mean, apart from yourself, Andrea, I don't know who else is going to be prepared to prepare a brief report.
Well, I would be interested in reading the reading the report and sharing my thoughts with Andrew. And would the PRC make a statement, or would CCGA make a statement?
Well, usually we put something together, then we send it to the board for their approval. So that would if you two want to go ahead and do that in relatively short order, I would think, and to get it to me, then I'll circulate it to the board and see if they want to run it up the flagpole.
Okay, well, I would go along with that. How about
Okay.
you? Yeah.
Well, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever you can get it to me, then we'll take it from there. But again, Andrea, thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's always a good thing for us to get out there and get our opinions known that we take positions that we think are supportable. Okay, any other news announcements? Okay, let's move on then to parliamentary committees. And the first one, of course, is Sarah for the House of Commons Justice Committee.
Okay, so I've got a kind of a short and sweet version today. Since our last meeting on November 11th, at the risk of sounding like I don't know what I'm doing, there was a meeting that I can find in the House of Commons Justice report on November 27th. But when I look at all the other information about the bills, I don't see anything about that meeting. So I don't know if it actually happened or if it just wasn't, if there wasn't anything consequent, like discussed during that meeting, or if there was amendments made to that meeting, but I can't see what they were. So as far as I understand, there wasn't really a proper meeting. So it was supposed to be discussing Bill C-29 or C-9. And then today, later on this afternoon, there also is a meeting from the Justice Committee about C-9 as well. Readings that have happened since our last meeting was Bill C-14. So that's the Bail Reform and Sentencing Act that we've been talking about. Had its second reading on November 18th. And Bill C-16, which I don't see also in the in some of the reports that I'm finding, but it's the act to amend certain acts in relation to criminal and correctional matters, child protection, gender-based violence, delays and other measures. So it's the Protecting Victims Act. This was had a study that was completed and presented to the House on December 2nd, and it had its first reading apparently this morning at December 9th. So that's kind of what's been going on. That's all that I've got that's like official meeting. I know what you're talking about, Peter, in terms of the I'm assuming you're talking about the AI surveillance link that you sent me. I don't know enough off the cuff to be able to talk about it comfortably. But I don't know if you want to talk about that now or during our AI. The AI update is very short. There's nothing going on there right now. So
I can do it on the AI update
okay, perfect.
because it stays compartmentalized. Okay.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has any questions. I really tried to do a lot of research because there didn't seem to be a lot that had happened since our last meeting. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I can maybe address them.
I thought I read, Sarah, that they canceled a meeting.
Is this what happened? Okay.
I thought I read that somewhere because they're trying to get their act together with the bloc. And
Yeah.
that seems to starting to go off the rails as well. That's why they're having a follow-up meeting or having a meeting instead of the one that they canceled. And that's
Okay.
the thing this afternoon. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Didn't that
Okay,
have
that
to
makes sense.
didn't that have to do with the hate crime aspect of it, where the bloc was supporting the liberals, and then it was a big mishmash?
It's the religious exemption story.
Yeah, that's
That
the one. Yeah.
was for.
I did hear that, and I saw a news article, or I guess I saw technically like a TikTok post from someone in the Conservative Party who was talking about a meeting that they had just been to where the Bloc and Liberals were working together in secret to basically use the bill against people of certain religious backgrounds to limit their free speech. That's a wild claim, I feel, but I also feel like I don't know enough to comment on that. But yeah, there was a lot of strong debate over that.
Okay, good. Thanks, Sarah.
More,
Thanks.
more to come.
More to come.
Yeah.
Okay, the next committee is Public Safety and National Security. That's Rob. Rob couldn't make it, but he sent me his notes, so I'll read them for the purposes of the record. So the Senate Committee on Human Rights has had 2 meetings since the last PRC meeting. The committee continued hearing witnesses on the topic of anti-Semitism in Canada. 17 witnesses testified, including academics, federal government representatives from the Canadian Heritage and StatsCan, anti-Semitism and anti-hate organizations, the Bard Center for the Study of Hate, Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism, Canadian Race Relations Foundation, and Israel's ambassador to Canada. A major theme was the need for education on anti-Semitism for schools, criminal justice professionals, and the general public. As discussed in previous meetings, the definition of anti-Semitism developed by the Interaction Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA, and adopted by the Government of Canada in 2024, and was supported by some witnesses and criticized by others. The main criticism of the definition is that it conflates criticism of Israel with racism towards Jews as a whole and promotes anti-Palestinian racism. Between 2018 and 2024, police reported hate crime doubled in Canada. Anti-Jewish incidents of hate crime rose by 82%, and anti-Muslim incidents rose by 108%. Self-reported data indicated that only 1 in 5 hate crimes are reported to the police. All right, so that's Rob's meeting, his minutes, and he'll certainly respond to any questions we may have when he returns. And he said he'll be here at our next meeting. The next committee is the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Brendan can't make it, but he's going to prepare a report, and I'll circulate it once I receive it. And lastly, we have a human rights report from Dick. You know what? I made a mistake. That last report I read was from Dick on the Human Rights Committee. And I'm sorry, I apologize. And Rob is going to send us his report for circulation. So I'm sorry, that's my mistake. So that last report was from Dick. So my apologies. Okay, on other business arising, there's nothing new except we're going to turn to Sarah and the AI report and see how that's going.
Yeah, so I don't think Michelle and I have met since our last meeting. We've been basically editing the paper that we do have. I think right now it's sitting at about 6 or 8 pages. So that's still in progress, and hoping that I've been dropping the ball because school is getting kind of crazy right now at the end of the year. But I'm hoping to have that edited and hoping to have a version that we can kind of circulate and have everyone take a look at in January for our next meeting. Fingers crossed. I think that is really realistic. So yeah, that's the update on our AI briefing or our AI position paper. And then yeah, Peter, if you want to chat about this AI facial recognition software that you sent me.
Yeah, just briefly, and I've got some of the newspaper articles. If you want them, Miles, I can forward them down to go out along with this. But it won't be my words. It'll be the what's been reported, CBC, etc. Fairly good reporting on it. It's not Rebel News or anything. Edmonton Police Service appears to be the first in Canada to actually undertake a study using the body cams that all the officers are wearing. Actually, it's going to be 50 officers that will have this. Those body cams will be linked up to AI software, facial recognition software provided by Axon, which is an American company that was also involved with manufacturing of tasers, etc. They've got a partnership with Edmonton. They're going to do a month-long study of this to look at accuracy for this. And the idea is that as the person is walking along the street, if I don't know, I see Sarah's face and in my camera, and that automatically runs through the facial recognition, and it says, "Oh, Sarah's that bad apple from Calgary," and therefore I can now, have possible probable cause to arrest her. That's sort of the basic plan. It was designed, or supposedly designed, to look at only serious criminal offenses and criminals themselves, or high risk offenders that may be out in the community. It has not gone before the privacy commissioner. She is now being advised of it, but at the last reading, that was only a couple of days ago, she hadn't even looked at the report, the policy impact assessment report hasn't been done up yet. It looks like the experiment will be over before the privacy commissioner has an opportunity to say whether or not it should go ahead, which is really interesting, and sort of, my opinion, a little bit devious. There is also, it's recognized broadly that there are significant problems. It's not so bad if they're looking for, a white guy like me with a bald head, or Irving for that matter. But anybody else, there is significant problems with identification, especially with darker complexion and also Asian. And that's been known, that's been around for a long time. It's not like using the biometrics that CBSA uses when you come in with your passport, etc. That is proven technology that is highly accurate. In fact, almost totally accurate. So there are a lot of issues involved here, and then the whole issue of privacy comes into it. What's interesting is that a couple of years ago, Clearview AI was severely sanctioned by the privacy commissioners federally. Quebec, BC, and Alberta, if I remember correctly, all pounced on them for doing similar types of things. So it's very interesting to see why Edmonton is now doing it, other than the fact that it's probably Edmonton and it's in Alberta. And right now, with the political climate, there is absolutely no pushback on that. So I think that that's an important piece to follow up, because it has, in my opinion, massive ramifications for policing. Also in England, I was just looking at some new stuff or information that came in from England. A similar type of project is going on over there as well, and with the same caveats of it not being all that great for full application of technology. So that's basically an update. I just wanted to make sure that we got it on the record.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. That's fascinating. I had a question for you. So do the officers have the ability to turn the cameras on and off?
They always do, but the cameras will be left on, and that's the whole point, is to have that constant feed. And what they're supposed to be doing, they're not actually going to arrest anybody. They're checking it out to see how it goes. They're using the Edmonton Police database, identification database that they have, the mugshots, basically, and running everybody through against those mugshots. To see if they can come up with someone. They're supposed to be not just the software, but also then, if there is a hit, then it has to be looked at apparently by people who are trained to identify individuals. And it doesn't really explain what that exactly means. If you've got a mugshot in front of you and you look at the AI, is that close enough to saying, yeah, this is the right person? versus the machine saying, yeah, this is the right person. They didn't get into a lot of explanation there. And there's not a whole lot in the public domain that I can find in terms of how the nitty-gritty of the experiment, how it's going to operate. And apparently they're supposed to report back to the police commission and the government afterwards, but it'll be interesting to see if that report ever sees the light of day. So
I don't know how often too in my long life I've heard it's only going to be for the most serious criminals, and it takes no time that it's the First Nation people that are aimed at. It's the most disenfranchised in society that get to pay for these new technologies. So
yeah.
good, thanks.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the only place where it seems to actually work really, really well is in China. And China has a phenomenal, I'm not saying it's positive, but have a phenomenal surveillance regime going.
Everywhere.
Yeah, literally everywhere. And you walk out of a building, and within 2 minutes, you can be stopped. And it's highly, highly accurate. Mind you, the population is a set population for the most part. It's essentially a homogeneous population in terms of look. And so therefore the software is set for that. But there's been some really interesting, I've got some old articles on all that stuff, but yeah, it's actually it's a scary situation. It really is. And anyways, won't get too political here.
London is big on cameras as well, apparently.
London, actually England, not the United Kingdom, but England itself is really big on that, and all of their stuff is tied into the automated plate number recognition on the highways and the stop and go cameras, et cetera, and then just the straight surveillance cameras. It's all linked together. And literally, you can get on the plane here, be seen. They know you're on the plane, and the moment you get off the plane in London, you can be followed right the way up to Glasgow. It's actually quite amazing.
Peter, just a question, Peter, when you refer to a hit, are we talking about individuals for whom there's an outstanding warrant, or just the random mugshots?
No, it's being tested. My understanding from just what's in the public domain is that it's being tested against the mugshots to come up with quote hits in that regard. The intent behind it, or the cell feature, is that this can now be used for those either with high risk individuals, either sex offenders who are out, for example, for individuals with warrants for not parking ticket warrants, but like serious warrants, homicide suspects, blah blah blah, and that's the intended reason, or the stated reason, why this is being looked at. But I tend to agree with Michelle that it'll soon devolve down from there.
Right.
Good. Keep track of that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, thanks, though.
It really is. Thank you very much. Okay, other items in the business rising. So the next one is an update on the Miscarriage of Justice Review Commission. So at the last meeting, I indicated that my contact, a friend of mine who's an MP, had talked to the Minister of Justice, who indicated that before Christmas they'd be posting the applications for commissioners to apply to sit on the commission. That hasn't happened, as far as I can tell. So it's not going to happen before the end of the year. Everybody's taking off within a week or so. So we'll just have to keep track of it, and I'll bring the PRC up to date whenever it actually does happen. So I have to think it'll take place hopefully early in the new year. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I can tell you that we're still waiting to hear back from the Uniform Law Conference of Canada. They still support our position that we undertake or create a body across the country that looks at harmonizing human rights codes so that criminal records are a ground of discrimination with respect to employment and housing, with caveats that go with that. So we're still waiting to hear back from them. So nothing new there. I don't Andrea, you probably don't have anything more on the death in custody item we have on this part of the agenda?
I don't. I think we talked about quite a number of meetings ago to probably just remove that from the agenda because the Ontario government's doing nothing
Oh,
about
okay.
it.
That can be done. And the last thing I put on is the item with the CBSA and RCMP to hire 2,000 personnel. We talked about that last meeting, and I just put Peter's name beside it because you had some comments on it. I don't expect any updates on that unless,
I've got just an interesting update that sort of goes along with it, if I may. Number one, some of those positions, I think we said this at the last meeting, the 1,000, it's 750 for boots on the street, and the other ones are more or less civilian members, analysts, etc. So it's not quite the full complement, but it's still a very high number, and that's somewhat still unrealistic. But what I wanted to bring up was the new Alberta Provincial Police Force or service is going to actually be provincial police, period. Sat Parhar is now the new chief. Has been appointed for that, but it is still in the process of how do we implement it. And there's actually an RFP out right now to look at doing a study for the implementation of actually bringing it into fruition. But what is really important here is that on December the 1st, the Police Review Commission for Alberta became operational. And that is, and again, this has been about a year and a half in getting things going. This will take over all the internal investigations of police officers in the province. They expect to do 3,000 to 4,000 investigations, which is a tremendous number. I can't believe that, but that's what they're putting out publicly, of which they think a lot of them complaints. They'll be dealing with complaints, 3,000 to 4,000 complaints. They figure that a number of them will be dealt with informally, and then they will actually do the hard investigations on the ones they have to. They'll be hiring 157 people to man this commission, and ACERT, which is the civilian oversight for police being involved with death, in custody death, and serious injuries, etc. It also applies, by the way, ACERT applies to the RCMP. They are covered under that umbrella. But the other investigations, it doesn't appear, RCMP still have their own system for looking at that. So this is actually quite an interesting thing. There's a civilian head of this. He's referred to as a chief executive officer. It's being set up more or less along the lines of a government corporation, and it'll be looked at as well. And at the same time, what's going on behind the scenes, which only just came out, although it started in January, and is that Peter Martin, retired justice from King's Bench here in Alberta, a very, very well-respected justice by everybody, defense, Crown, police, everybody totally respects him. He's looking into why, when ACERT recommended, and he's got 3 specific cases, recommended that criminal charges be laid against the police officers, the Crown did not do it. And so he's being charged with doing a report back for the government on that, which I think is a really interesting piece as well, just in terms of administration of justice out here. So I just wanted to bring that up forward.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Any questions for Peter? Good stuff. Okay, that's it for the items. So let's move to legislation. Very little has happened, and very little will probably happen before the next meeting because of the break. So essentially, there for government bills in the Commons, I've still highlighted Bill C-14, which is the one that is dealing with revisions of the bail system, the youth criminal justice system. And I'll just update everybody. I already let Andrea know this, that I talked to the clerk of the Justice Committee, and although the bill itself is at second reading, they haven't yet had committee hearings set up for it. So he's going to let me know, and then I indicated that I'll appear with Andrea, and I think Dick obviously, because Dick wrote the paper that we support. So we'll make an appearance before the committee. And that'll obviously be in the new year when Parliament returns. So I'll let everybody know, and it may or may not be before the next meeting. We'll take it from there, and he'll let us know. And he's a very obliging guy. He was very, very good when I appeared before the committee last time. So he knows us, and he knows CCGA, and members of the committee know us, which is a good thing. And appearing again is obviously another good thing. And we'll get our opinion known, and particularly support of Dick's paper, and we'll go forward with that. So that's something again for the new year. And that's all we have with respect to public bills in the Commons. There are no public bills in the Senate that are of any concern to us. And I've highlighted simply some of the private members' bills for both the Commons and the Senate that have moved through the next step of their readings and committee work. All right, so that's there for you to take a look at if you like. And that's it. So does anybody have anything else for the good of the committee that we can discuss before we say goodbye?
I just wanted to say I forgot to add when I said about the PRC, Alberta PRC, that it also applies to the 3 First Nations police forces that are here in the province as well, which is really quite interesting. That's been rolled into that whole envelope, but they are self-administered police services and fully accredited in Alberta, so that's probably why.
Okay, very good. Anything else, anybody? Okay, well, listen, everybody have a wonderful holiday season. All right, enjoy yourselves, take some time off, relax, and Irving, you go to Florida, and we'll see everybody back here in January.
Sounds good.
All the best.
All the best.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.